And here's some more. Here's where law enforcement stalking incidents. You had this police lieutenant was arrested using technology to stalk his wife. Kansas police chief used flocked license plate cameras 164 times to track his girlfriend. And on it goes. I had a law enforcement in Oklahoma. He contacted me and said that I've left the agency, the law enforcement agency that he worked for. I've been unemployed now from them for about 6 months, and I still have the app on my phone and still getting information from the tag reading. So the internal controls within law enforcement are not there to protect your data from just that type of use and abuse.
Good evening. We're glad you're here. By the way, I said good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you. I came dressed differently tonight. I wanted to be warm, but I put on this loser shirt. You know, the Dallas Cowboys were for sale. And there was all the people in the Philippines wanted to buy them. And they were going to move them to the Philippines, and they said if they succeeded, they would name them the Manila Folders. So, how many Cowboy fans do we have here? None. We're glad you're here. In all seriousness, we're going to get started pretty quickly. I was talking to Charity Lynch on Sunday evening. They came down and had dinner with us, and I was talking to her about all the things. I'm chairman of city elders of Rogers County and the Liberty Brigades, and then I'm the executive director of the National Freedom Brigades. And I said, I can't do all this stuff. She said, yeah, you're going to. You just got to keep doing it. And we're going to lead an effort here. And I want to tell you that in all seriousness, we're trying to wake up the people. I wanted to say citizens, but I want to wake up the people who have been longtime residents, who have their driver's license, they were born here, or they moved here and legally, not illegally, but legally, and became U.S. citizens. And we want to awaken these people that we're in a war. I hope you realize that. If you don't, you're going to find out part of it tonight. That's why I say all the time when I'm speaking, I will oftentimes remind people that we are living in a time that it is 1775 all over again. And sometimes we have to have meetings like this where the real topic of the discussion is, can we really do this? Can we really bring America back? Can we stand up and ask God to lead us back? And it starts with repentance. Because if you study the Word, especially in the Old Testament, 2 Chronicles 7:14 says that if my people who are called by my name, and by the way, I'll say that he's not talking to the U.S. Senate or the U.S. House of Representatives, or the White House. He's talking about the people who claim to have Jehovah as their God, and that's you and me. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways. And I don't want to take time to preach tonight and tell you how wicked we've been in letting the things happen in our country that have been going on for several decades. But if we'll do that, then he said, their Father, will hear their prayer. I will forgive their sins, and then I will heal their land. I had to help a preacher the other day who was talking and explaining on a conference call that I was on that he wanted to ask God, first of all, to heal our land before anything else would happen. And I said, brother, I want to tell you that there's some steps that we have to take first before that'll ever happen. And the first one is repentance. And that means turning away and turning around from what we've been doing, sometimes from the lack of support for scriptural precedents, and start doing the right things. I'm glad you're here tonight. I listened to Tom last night, Representative Tom Gann from, I want to call it Division 8, but
District 8.
It's the number 8 is where he represents.
Yes.
You used to say Section 8.
Yeah.
I grew out of that.
Section 8. There you go. And he's got section roads all around his house, so he's an 8. But he represents that area, and he has been working hard on our behalf. Mm-hmm. And he's here tonight to describe a part of this war that's going on. And we are getting ready to enlist all of your help. We have an appointment tomorrow. We're going to start talking about doing some things in both the city of Claremore and in Rogers County that we're going to go out and try to get a petition referendum to hold off and to say that we do not want the TIFs and the TIDs and all the stuff that goes along with all the stuff that the cabal wants to do here. I don't think our people are educated enough or know enough, really, to stand up and say more than I just don't want it here, but we want to pull the rug out from under it as best we can by saying if you come here, you're going to have to pay your own taxes. You're going to have to do your own work, and you're going to have to pay your own bills. Mm-hmm. But the TIFs and the TIDs will give them a 10-year blanket where all the taxes are put up on your shoulders. Now, I don't know about you. Maybe you don't pay enough taxes yet. Maybe you're one of those people that says, I need to pay more taxes. Tonight will be a learning experience. And so I want you to welcome Tom Gann tonight, representative who's a champion for getting America back on track, getting Rogers County back on track, and the state of Oklahoma back on track to put Jesus Christ as King again in this land and start serving God. Let's welcome him tonight.
Thank you. Let me do that. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. How many people how many people are living in the 8th House District here? Got 1, 2? Okay, if you're east of Claremore Lake or north of Claremore Lake, towards that way, you would be in the 8th House District. If you're Claremore proper, you'll be in House District 9. Anybody live in Claremore proper? Okay, all right. Where's the rest of
I'm a
Oolagaw? Okay, all right. Owasso, wow. All right, so we have a broad base here of Tiowa Hills. All right, that's great. Yeah, that's good. That's good. There's a broad cross section, so I'm really thrilled about that because there's just a seed in every little district, in every little town, every little nook and cranny of Oklahoma that needs to hear this information and that you can share with others that would have the same concerns that you have. And I am state representative in District 8, and I'm going in my 10th year. And if I'm successful and don't and make it through this election cycle, I'll have 2 additional years, and then I'm termed out and I'm done. So I'm almost to the end of my term, our constitutionally limit on the years to serve. But before we do exit the building, though, we're going to make sure that they at least try to have something to remember us by. And one of the things that we've really caused a little bit of stir on has been the automated license plate readers and all the situation and all the history behind that and all the efforts to try and to make it total across the state of Oklahoma. We've really been fighting that down here. So this is a PowerPoint that I did in the fall. This is the second one that I've done. I did one in 24 when I tried to alert my colleagues and the rest of the state of Oklahoma that the law is being violated as it pertains to automated license plate readers. We had a pretty good response the first year. Nothing happened. We went into the second year, and there were some pieces of legislation that were proposed, but there were enough members in the House and the Senate that realized that the state of Oklahoma, the people of Oklahoma, do not want to be surveilled. They don't want to be mass surveilled, so they did not go anywhere. So we had another interim study this fall. The Senate didn't have one this time, and I'll refer back to that as we get into the meeting. But this is the interim study that I put forth there at the Capitol, and we had Marvin Goodman, who is with the Sooner Sentinel. He's a former information officer with the military department of the state of Oklahoma, very well versed on this. He was part of this interim study. We had the Institute of Justice. Anybody heard about the Institute of Justice? They are a premier law firm nationwide that take on constitutional issues, and right now they're fighting the ALPRs, the license plate readers in Norfolk, Virginia. And the latest word we have on that is that the federal judge has heard opening arguments in that case where a man in Norfolk, Virginia can't leave his house without being surveilled everywhere he goes in Norfolk. And so he has filed a Fourth Amendment case in that. And so they were there, they presented, they testified, gave us an update on where things are nationally with them. And then the best contact that I had was a defense attorney out of the city of Tulsa. Her name's Sheena Burgess. She has Smiling and Burgess. I would have read her resume, but it was like 10 pages long. And this lady is a powerhouse when it comes to being a defense attorney. And she would go to these defense attorney meetings all over the state, and they say, hey man, you need to get a hold of Representative Gann. He's all over this license plate reader, because that's what they were talking about. And so we finally contacted each other, and I invited her to testify at our interim study, and she was a part of this, and very powerful presentation and testimony of what they're dealing with as a defense attorney. And so that's what this study is. This is where this comes from, and if all goes well, we'll probably have another one this year as things progress within this whole issue, because it's not only Claremore, it's not only Inola where I live, it's not only Pryor where they're at. This is in Oklahoma, it's nationwide. This company, Flock, which has almost become a verb, but they are the company that have these low-cost surveillance cameras that are positioned throughout the nation. You'll see them here at Lowe's in Claremore. You'll see them right down by the Homeland in Inola. And they all look the same, and they've come out with a new version that does panning and motion, but it also does zoom to be able to zoom in on your facial features to map your face. And so this is where this is. So these aren't what they look like, but we'll get to one or two that will show that. So I'm going to cover tonight the legislative and legal review. This is important. This is what I had to really dig into, because in a public safety meeting, they came and the proposal was to expand automated license plate readers throughout the state of Oklahoma on all state right-of-ways. And so during that discussion, I asked the question, well, what's authorizing them now? Because as I read this statute, it said that automated license plate readers, the little cameras, are only to be used for the compulsory insurance law. You have not paid your bill, you're on record there at the Oklahoma Insurance Department. They have a database, and then you zoom by a camera and you're flagged, oh, he hadn't paid, then you get a ticket. That's what this system was, the Trojan horse to bring in the rest of what we have. So I had to dig in and find out and go back to the original tapes, which we'll hear from tonight, of those committee meetings where they discussed certain issues about this, and then try to bring you up to date on how this has already been, how the Supreme Court and have other courts viewed license plate readers in comparison to tracking people with your cell phone. So that's what we'll talk about. We'll talk about the city of Tulsa. They talked about the city of Tulsa and Guthrie. I'll touch on that a little bit. I don't have those presentations to show you, but then the National Institute for Justice was also present, where they gave us a nationwide history. So to begin with, in order to understand how we got here as a state, in order to understand how we ended up where we are today, you've got to go back all the way to 2013 with House Bill 1792, the Oklahoma Temporary Motorist Liability Plan. So 2 years prior, 2011, the state of Oklahoma had a 25% uninsured motorist rate, okay? And so they passed this law in 2013. And in that law, the law enforcement would stop you if they found out you didn't have insurance. They would take your tag, send it to the courthouse. Then you had to go get it, pay the fine, and get your tag back. And so this had a dramatic effect on the 25 percentile of uninsured motorists in the state of Oklahoma. And it dropped it down to a little over 13.6% within the time frame that we first see in 2016. The next set of law that comes into effect, automated license plate readers. So in 2016, we had Senate Bill 1056 that required law enforcement to have a subpoena, a court order, or a duly issued search warrant for Turnpike in order to share their license plate data with anybody. The reason is it's a kind of a quasi-governmental entity, and you are, as a customer with the Turnpike, you pay your toll, they give you a little device in your car, and then if they want that data, the law enforcement has to go through this process, due process, folks, in order to get your information if there's an issue. And so they required that to be in statute. Then in 2024, we had Senate Bill 1620, and this is where I came in. This is where I saw that they were trying to spread the use of license plate readers throughout the state of Oklahoma on the right-of-ways. They didn't have authorization for it. Some of them were illegally placed, and ODOT, after the Senate interim study, they said, look, we have to have statutory authority before you can put these in state right-of-way. So this is what this bill attempted to do, but it was defeated in the Senate by 68% opposed. So it did not advance. There was a House bill there's a similar bill in the House, and it didn't make it either. So you can see right there, when you have a Senate that votes something down by 68%, there is no mood in the state of Oklahoma to expand license plate readers or mass surveillance. 2025, 857, Senate Bill 857 and House Bill 1626, no committee review. Nobody wanted to touch it. These bills were introduced by legislators, and they just didn't go anywhere because they knew better. And then 2025, House Bill 2215 repealed the very first bill in 2013. The bill that actually did something, folks, because it required a law enforcement officer to do it. So this is really ironic, I think, that your law enforcement people were doing their job and lowering the uninsured motorist rate in the state of Oklahoma, yet they repeal it down here. And I told the House author about it, and of course I voted against it. But this is why it's important. You have to have the context, you have to have the history by how things come about, how things happen, in order to really get a handle on some of these issues at the state capitol. Now, here's the other bill in 2016 that goes directly into what we're going to talk about tonight. Uninsured Motorist Vehicle Insurance Enforcement Program. So, the Oklahoma District Attorney Council came to the legislature and said, oh, if we just had a license plate reader program, we would never have to come back and ask for an appropriation from the state legislature, because we know we could fund our whole office with automated license plate reader program. And so this was introduced, and we have some recordings here of the actual committee meeting that this was in, where they testified about it. But although that 1792, the one that involved a law enforcement, a live person, had been very effective in the reduction of uninsured motorists, by the time 359 came in, this was 2011, 2013, now it's 2016, the DA Council still used the 25% uninsured motorist statistic, and it was not correct. Nobody even bothered to check it. So this is the Trojan horse that comes in, and they get their appropriation, and they have got everybody worked up because nobody's even bothered to check the actual rates in the legislature. So I'm going to attempt to play this and see if this works out. This is an A and B Appropriations Committee. The DA Council lobbyist is here. I can't tell how many's in the room, but I do know your state treasurer, Todd Russ, was in the room. He voted against this measure, by the way. Good guy. And I do recognize some other voices. Representative Earl Sears was the chairman of this committee. And then we had Morissette, Representative Morissette. He's a Democrat. He's since passed away. And he sounds a whole lot more Republican than any Democrat I've heard in a while. But let's listen to what they say. So this is the committee meeting.
Why it failed. This is only going to be used solely. All that we're looking to use that for is uninsured motorists. It's not to look for in the bill, we put in there that it would be for uninsured motorists, for amber alerts or silver alerts. But anything beyond that, that's not what this is designed for.
Okay, so you heard him. The DA councils before this committee. All we're going to do is automated license plate readers for uninsured motorists. That's all we're going to do. And amber alerts. Now this is Representative Morissette. He gets to the heart of the issue. He was good at that. He was an attorney, and he was really good at what representing his people and on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bragg, I'm glad you're here. Under today's law, today's prosecutions, as I understand it, has been a long time, somebody is stopped. Verification for insurance is either verified through the driver, having the insurance with them, or they can go through the database now. They don't have insurance, and if that's the only violation, they're given a citation. They're ordered to court. In my experience, you either get the insurance or you're going to be found guilty of the violation of the local community of the county that you're in. What is wrong with that?
Listen.
The big thing that I would say that is wrong with that is this. You're getting one officer making one stop, and you're picking apples one at a time. With this technology, you would be able to scan a whole lot more. You're being able to scan the plates and hopefully be able to address a lot more of these individuals that may not have insurance. So you're going to be able to get, it's kind of like you're trying to get more people to do that.
Did you hear him almost say mass surveillance?
This way as well. People don't go to jail. They're not going to have their license suspended. I don't know how many people get their license suspended now, but there is a statute that allows for suspension of your license by DPS if you are found guilty of not having your insurance.
Correct.
There would be no suspension of their license with this. It's just an effort at trying to address the compulsory insurance, get the people to have insurance, and not clog up the court system with that.
You're recognized.
Well, I know you have lots of empathy for the court system, but the court systems that I am endeavored with almost every single day have plenty of time and personnel to deal with citations of lots of people. So that's clearly not an issue. Okay. If it's an individual violation, and every single case is an individual case, not this mass umbrella of 1984 technology, the book 1984, George Orwell, of getting everybody caught in a net. We talk about the law and the individual freedoms of people. And I understand that driving is a privilege, but not having insurance is a single violation of the law. If there are other violations, your law enforcement people automatically, if they're doing it right, can catch those right on the spot. So my question is, what is the purpose of this bill, other than what you just explained? Because right now we have the ability, the law, to prosecute these people under the present system, correct?
Yes.
Then therefore this bill is unnecessary. Unless you're attempting to expand the powers of the police government bureaucracy. Because this bill was written by your agency. There's no doubt about it. You wrote it, right? With conjunction with whoever.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
The point is this. You are expanding the powers of law enforcement. And by the way, I don't know what that 100,000 population limitation is in there, but that's a question for another day.
There's not one.
Yeah, the version I'm looking at there is.
There's a newer version.
If people are concerned about expansion of government powers and limiting government powers, they'd be real concerned about this bill. Would you agree?
No.
You wouldn't.
I
Of
think
course,
if
you
they're-
work for the
think if
agency.
they're-
I can
I
suspect
would
so.
submit that if they're concerned with trying to address uninsured motorists and trying to have more of the motorists that we have be insured so that the people are safer, I would think that they would love it.
All right, just a
One more.
second. Justice
And-
Morissette.
Okay, you heard all that. Did you hear that? Did you pick up that? This is really what their intent was, instead of going one by one and really having an effect, because you don't need to get everybody in order to really enforce something. If you take one or two people like they were doing and take their tag and send it to the courthouse, word gets around, folks. But the intent was to establish the uninsured motorist system, the bureaucratic system, the police system that would be funded by this. So let's go one more here, and this will be it. No. Let's see if I can get that. Well, for some reason that link didn't work. It's just more substantiation of the true intent of what was really behind the bill. And as you heard, the author of the bill stepped up and said, it's an uninsured motorist rate. We still have, they're all under the assumption that there's 25% uninsured motorists here in the state of Oklahoma. So let me just see if I can get back to my. Yes, I was saying that the actual statistic was 13.6 when I did my research on that. So I went, yes. Let's see what. Okay, so Title 47, this is the title and the section that the law changed. And it says, Title 47, Section 7, 606(1)F says, was adjudicated in this case, and the judge ruled to suppress the evidence based upon the Oklahoma statute and left the Fourth Amendment question alone. In the court of McLean County, the thing that we pointed out in our first interim study was that this law that was in place, they wanted to make sure that all that data was supposed to be used for was nothing but the compulsory insurance law. So within Title 47, in Section 7, it says that the data shall not be used for any other reason than the compulsory insurance law. Folks, that's the strongest language you can put in statute, shall not. So when we pointed that out in 23, we told them that you jeopardize that evidence. You put that all that you've done is in jeopardy when you go to a court, because the courts are going to kick it out because it's illegal to use. And sure enough, in McLean County, that's exactly what happened. They had a drug case. They used ALPR data and submitted it. The judge kicked it out. She said, I don't even have to go to the Fourth Amendment implication of this because Oklahoma statute is spot on. You cannot use this data for any other reason other than the compulsory insurance law, and they were trying to get him on a drug charge. So they kicked it out. And the database in the McLean County lawsuit, the database that's used to store all of this information, Oklahoma Law Enforcement Telecommunications System, OLETS, it's a division created by the Department of Public Safety, connects agencies across the state to criminal histories, driver's records, and other databases, has about 10,000 users in the criminal justice community statewide. It links to this INLETS, which is the International Justice of Public Network, and it's a self-funded private corporation. So your tracking is being housed in these databases. This connects to 1 million users, 900,000 devices, 45,000 agencies, 100 data sources, 2.1 billion transactions in 2018. That's the latest statistic I have. And so there is a tremendous amount of this going on. So the United States case these cases touch on the Fourth Amendment implications of this, because you're supposed to be secure in your effects and your person and your goods, but you're also required, the law enforcement's required to utilize what they call due process. You have to have You have to have a probable cause in order to get a warrant, in order to really figure out whether or not there's been a crime committed. And these are the cases that relate to that. You got Katz, Kylo, United States versus Jones, but it's Carpenter versus United States that's the most analogous to what we're talking about tonight. Because in this case, Carpenter versus the United States, a government law enforcement entity went to the cell phone company and said, we want all the cell phone records of this one phone number, and they gave them to him. And so when they got those records, they were able to be able to recreate his tracking due to where the cell towers pinged his cell phone. And the government threw it out because it was a violation of his Fourth Amendment rights to privacy. Because one, they didn't have a warrant. So you didn't have a warrant to get this stuff. So this is the one that is going to be, everybody's going to probably try to compare our situation with these license plate readers in the United States cases. Jones versus the U.S., the case, police suspected Antoine Jones of drug trafficking, and they attached a GPS device to his vehicle and to account for his tracking and his movements, and that counts as a search under the Fourth Amendment. And Scalia said yes, when government physically puts a device on your personal property, it's a trespass for the purpose of collecting information, and that's a Fourth Amendment search. But what Alito said, Alito added to that said that when they take a photograph of your tag, that's the same thing as a trespass. In his mind, in his opinion. Physical trespass equals search, property versus privacy. Mass surveillance was exactly what the farmers feared. The framers of our Constitution. And here's a summary of the Carpenter case. There's 13,000 cell site records, over 127 days without a warrant, tracking his movements. The Supreme Court said that violated the Fourth Amendment, protection against unreasonable search. Decision highlights the privacy concerns with surveillance tools like ALPRs, which similarly track vehicle locations, and it limits the third-party doctrine, meaning Department of Motor Vehicles and license plate data also serve and also have legal privacy protections on them. And so Carpenter established that vehicle location data should receive Fourth Amendment safeguards like cell phone data. But what they're doing with these cameras is they're tracking you everywhere you go. Every time they're motion activated. So every time you pass it, whether you're coming or going, it's taking a picture of you. And they are taking detailed pictures. This is not just focusing on your tag. They have the make of your car, they have the color, they have the dings, they have the bumper stickers, they have maybe the little Hawaiian lady in the back that sways in some of the vehicles. They have all that, and they're able to store it and so one of the objections that you get from law enforcement is, well, if anybody's out in the public, then this is all plain view. This is all legitimate because you don't have any expectation of privacy when you travel down the road. So this plain view doctrine has been interpreted incorrectly. Plain view doctrine says that if you're a law enforcement officer and you're walking your beat on the sidewalk and you pass a guy and a bag of cocaine falls out on the street underneath his coat and you saw it fall out of his pocket, he doesn't have to get a warrant to make the arrest. He sees that there's activity here. This is happening in plain view. Then so what they're saying though, because you drive around in plain view and everybody can see you, then we have a right to record you. And that's not plain view. And the reason is that it's your tag is your first state issued privacy, because it doesn't have your name and address on there. It has a code, and so that's your state issued privacy plate, so that I can't tell where you live by looking at your tag. I can take your tag and go get that information if they'll give it to me. So this is why plain view just doesn't work. And I have these articles on the back table. Mass surveillance and individual tracking is taking place in Oklahoma. The Tulsa surveillance gamble article reporters described how they provided their tag number to police for a demonstration. And when the reporters visited Tulsa Real-Time Information Center, and this is up and running in Tulsa, it looks like one of those NCIS TV shows. They have all this room with all these TV monitors around it, and they have cameras everywhere, and they can see and record and find out what's going on. They gave Johnston one of the license plate numbers so he could demonstrate how the system works. Johnson typed in a number onto his phone, and detailed log of where the car had been over the past month came up in seconds. No warrant was needed. When the software prompted Johnson to give a reason for the search, he typed in test. And this is another issue that's starting to gel and come forth, is there are no internal controls around the use of this data. We've had law enforcement just through temptation have tracked spouses, have tracked girlfriends. You know, they've illegally searched the records for their own personal benefit. And so you don't have a lot of controls over who has access to this. If he can just type in test and find out where you've been in the last 30, 90 days, you've got an issue here, internal control issue. And that's in that article back there, if we still have any copies. You can look it up on the Frontier. Garrett Yalk and I he's a young kid. We spent probably 45 minutes on the phone talking about this. He's probably one of the best reporters I ever talked to, young guy. And I just really appreciate him at that. So you heard that there was like billions of ALPRs being read on a yearly basis. And statistically, you look at the number of errors that are made with these tags, where they might read one as a 7 and vice versa, or they might have a number match that's out of Illinois, but you've got an Oklahoma tag. These mistakes are out there, and some of them are going to be deadly, I think, one of these days. In New Mexico, 21-year-old Jacqueline Gonzalez and her 12-year-old sister were held at gunpoint and handcuffed after the flock system mistook a 2 and a 7 on their license plate, falsely tagging their vehicle. And then in Colorado, this cost Aurora, Colorado, almost $2 million when law enforcement made the mistake on their ALPR system, and they stopped and this mother and her family, including a 6-year-old girl, were pulled over and forced to lie down on the hot pavement. And so the mistake was made, and it cost the city $1.9 million. And this is something that the attorney brought out in my interim study. When she read the contract for the city of Tulsa, the only liability that Flock Camera has exposed to them is $100. The rest of it is on you all, the taxpayer. So if we have a similar incident in the state of Oklahoma, and there's a lawsuit awarded, it's going to come out of the taxpayer's sinking fund, Tulsa sinking fund, or whatever. It's going to be paid for by the taxpayer. This is a problem, and hopefully we'll be able to show the video on why this is really should be talked about. But right after this interim study this fall, I was contacted by a man here in Oklahoma who had been in another part of the state, and he and his wife and his elderly mother were at a fast food restaurant, and their tag was dinged. They had a tribal tag. It was dinged from a stolen trailer in Texas, and law enforcement had him at gunpoint in the parking lot of the fast food restaurant, and his elderly mother could not hear the instructions on what they were asking her to do, which was to walk backwards. And elderly people I have a problem walking backwards. And so he was upset. He wanted to talk about it. We talked about it. I don't know if he's going to do anything legally, but this is something that he said he said, Tom, he said, I've gotten over the incident real quick, but every time I have a law enforcement officer behind me, I break out in a sweat now. And because of the fear that his tag is going to be misread. And so there are victims already this victimization of the American citizen, Oklahomans, nationwide, has got to come to a point where we have to say no more of this. You'd have no business recording our whereabouts and then forcing us to pay for data centers to store all of this stuff. This is how this connects into all of this, folks. They got to do something with it, because your contracts will read, most of the contracts read, well, the entity, the city or the county or whoever installs the license plate readers in whatever city or town, everything is stored for 30 days and then it's erased. Well, that may be in the city, but Flock stores it on the cloud and they make money off of it. It's a money generator. And here's some more. Here's where law enforcement stalking incidents. You had this police lieutenant was arrested using technology to stalk his wife. Kansas police chief used Flock license plate cameras 164 times to track his girlfriend. And on it goes. I had a law enforcement in Oklahoma. He contacted me and said that I've left the agency, the law enforcement agency that he worked for. I've been unemployed now from them for about 6 months, and I still have the app on my phone and still getting information from the tag reading. So the internal controls within law enforcement are not there to protect your data from just that type of use and abuse. And I don't think you can legislate anything like that. I think that we just have to rid ourselves of this plague. Automated license plate readers are watching you. And Greers Ferry, Arkansas, anybody hear about Greers Ferry, Arkansas, where the city of Greers Ferry placed a Flock camera right outside this guy's house? I mean, and you could just see his house. So every time he went out to get the paper, walk the dog, leave, come back, he was being recorded every time. He was always recorded. So he goes to the city of Greers Ferry and said, "Hey, what is this? I need to have this moved." And the attitude of the cities and law enforcement was, "You got to get a court order. Go get a court order." And this is something that is kind of the underlying tone with which law enforcement in cities and towns take on with this. And so the Institute of Justice stepped in, and they said, "You can either remove it now, or we'll go to court." And so they removed it, and so it's no longer in front of the man's house. And that's a real world that just happened last year. So feds use local cops' password to do immigration surveillance with Flock cameras. And surprisingly, if you go out to the city of Tulsa and look at their Flock portal, so one of the uses that they do not use Flock camera surveillance technology for is immigration. So they want to know where you're going, but if you're illegal, that's okay. It's just upside down. It's terrible. Okay, so who is this Flock Safety? Who is this? Where do these cameras come from? And these are in 4,000 communities nationwide. They put hold on pilot programs with agencies with the Department of Homeland Security, according to a statement by its founders. So they put a hold on that immigration thing because they're a woke company. They don't want to be known for going after immigration, which should be probably top priority for any law enforcement agency right now. And so they stopped their participation with federal agencies. But here's the guy behind it. This is Garrett Langley. And he's got this AI startup. Flock thinks it can eliminate crime in America with these cameras. This is his goal. And Larry Ellison with Oracle thinks the same thing. It's called the Hawthorne effect. Hawthorne effect says if you're on camera, you're going to behave differently than somebody that doesn't have a camera on you, which is bogus. You're not going to prevent crime with Flock cameras. All right, you're just going to record it. And we see that all the time on the nightly news. Somebody getting stabbed, somebody getting set on fire, somebody getting hit. Because a camera can't help you when there's a crime committed, but a live body could. If you had a police on patrol, they could help you if somebody attacked you. Cameras cannot. This is a utopian, very naive position to take for a young man like this. And of course, it's not scriptural either, because you'll never change the heart of man with a camera on a pole. You're just not going to. So more than 80,000 AI-powered cameras across U.S. Flock safety has become one of the cops' go-to surveillance tools with a $7.5 billion industry right now. And this CEO, Garrett Langley, he's going to deploy these Chinese drones now and to try to attain his goal. And anybody, if they're familiar with Greek mythology, it is Sisyphean. Does anybody know who Sisyphean was? He was one that was, the gods made him, roll a ball up a hill only to have it rolled down again and only to roll it up again. That was his life after he did what he did, I think. I don't study Greek mythology. That's a quick read of it because I didn't know what Sisyphean was. But that's a figure in Greek mythology trying to prevent crime in America. So he's going with the Chi-Coms. And what do they have in China but a credit system, mass surveillance? You can't go use your, credit card if you don't do the right things, and they shut you down technologically. And we're really close to that, folks. So surveillance company Flock now using AI to report us to police if it thinks our movements, our patterns are suspicious. Okay, so if everybody passed a Flock camera coming here tonight, when we all leave, they could say, oh, well, this is real suspicious. You listen to that Tom Gann guy from, I know it, and he's a real radical. And so so you guys are all guilty now and association. And this is a real thing. And this is the one that probably, where we cross over with the left and right. The left and right, they don't like corporate welfare. We don't like corporate welfare. Left doesn't like it because they want more welfare for individuals, but we don't like it because it's your tax dollars and it's immoral to take it from you and give it to somebody else. But we're together on this as well. We don't like to be surveilled. We believe in privacy, and they do too. And so we agree on this. And one of the comments by the Democrat that was in the committee in my interim study, he had to kind of take a double check. I mean, he had to let's talk about this screen again. Is this correct? And I said, yes. And so this really raises a red flag, especially in ethnic communities. And this is very problematic. So this is a little bit of, okay, so let me read you Sheena Burgess's testimony, the second paragraph. Statute is clear that law enforcement shall not use this for any reason other than to enforce the compulsory insurance law, Burgess said. Permitting law enforcement to use this information for any other reason is in violation of statute. We have to have checks and balances to assure police are not abusing their power. Okay, so we don't want government. If it's illegal to use in a court of law, why is anybody even collecting it? If it's prevented, we have one of the strongest prohibitions in the nation on the use of data for any other purpose in the compulsory insurance law. And so when people say, "Well, you're going to write a bill to do this and that," and you step back and you think, "Well, do we need to?" We already have one of the strongest laws in the country that says shall not use this data, but yet we have the attitude and the concept and the attitude of law enforcement that says, hey, we're going to defy the law. We're going to continue to do this because it's about public safety. It's about keeping you safe. And this is where we run afoul. And I said, and it's like Sheena Burgess said, the solution is you got to get a warrant if you're going to tap into this data. And clearly they don't use warrants. They can access this data. And I had a video of a man that came up here from Texas, and he was stopped by a highway patrolman, it was Ardmore City Police. And so he had this stop, and it was called I can't remember the name of it, but he brought him back into the cab of his cruiser, starts asking him some questions. At the time, he puts his tag in the system, and then he starts asking, you were up here twice in January, what were you doing? And then what were you doing here in March? And the guy's like, he's wondering what he's done that they stopped him for. And so I've shown this it just really just shows this is what they're doing with it, folks. This is what they're doing, and people are really, that really bothers a lot of people. So Tulsa attorney cautioned lawmakers on Thursday that state taxpayers could face big legal bills if courts ruled that widespread use of automated license plate readers violates the constitutional rights of its citizens. Sheena Burgess, who practiced law since 2000, is also an adjunct professor at University of Tulsa, said citizens should be worried that the Tulsa Police Department, Tulsa County Sheriff's Department, and that's everybody that's surrounding them too, all counties, as the whole state of Oklahoma, and other departments across the state have policy for using high-speed cameras that violate state law. And this is the thing, you cannot solve this through policies within each individual law enforcement agencies. This has got to be, you have a law, you're either going to follow it and not do what you can't do, or we've got real problems. In the interim study that the Senate had in 2023, that summer, we had just a show of force by all law enforcement agencies within the state of Oklahoma show up, and they're talking about flock, and they're giving all of these anecdotal stories about the successes that they've had in capturing these bad guys. But it was asked by Senator Brooks, who is a very liberal senator, and asked, well, how does somebody opt out of this? And the response by former chief of police in the city of Tulsa, Wendell Franklin, said, well, just don't drive. That's your option. And that's outrageous. But the one that really troubled me was one of the chiefs of police, the head of the chiefs of police, I can't remember his name. He said, it doesn't matter what the law says, we're going to continue to do this until we have a court order. So if they don't respect the laws as written now, what's a court order going to do? So this is the situation that we're in right now. And I don't know what we do about it. But what we're waiting on is that basically it's kind of boiled down to we're waiting on the Virginia case, Norfolk, Virginia case, to maybe have an effect on a cooling effect on the use of this surveillance. But I think in the meantime we could have more victimization of what's going on around here, and it's just a matter of time before I think somebody gets really hurt. I can tell you there's a lot of videos out there on YouTube about the use of this technology and the problems that they've had, and law enforcement agencies facing a lot of liability here. I'm going to try to play this video. This is the one I showed last night on our call, and hopefully this will come up.
Your father knows about saving money. Everything I'm wearing, I'm paying.
Okay, that doesn't do that. I'm not sure how to get this up there, Dean, up on the screen. Anybody have any clues? Let me see if it did. Oh, well, let me see. Let me get back here. X out of all these.
I think, but it's kind of confusing.
Okay, I'm not going to be able to play it, I don't think, but we'll send this video out. There's a lot of techies out there that have businesses that relate to surveillance cameras or the technology behind it. It took them 30 seconds to hack into this system. And so what this video shows was that the surveillance system as a whole, flock camera system, has a tremendous amount of holes in it. Through just a commercial type search engine, the man was able to go in and see photos in Georgia, photos all over the country. He was able to zoom in and figure out people at Lowe's what they bought. He was able to use facial recognition software that's available out there on the internet very basic facial recognition software, and determined that these two people that were at this bazaar, like a Saturday morning farmer's market, were having this argument, and the camera zoomed in on it, and he was able to pull out that the one guy was finishing med school. He was also able to find out that the lady was having some sort of issue with with her doctor. And that data was just readily available after he captured their images. And this is all through the use of flock cameras. So flock sent him a letter, cease and desist letter, said this is not right, you're lying and everything. And so he responds to flock by standing in front of one, reads the letter of the response to the camera and records it and sends it to him. And he videotapes himself with a flock camera and sends that back to him. So the technology is open. It has like an open architecture, and people who know how to do this can get in and they can see anything they want to. They can delete records. They can copy records. And so your data, your life is exposed to who knows who. And if individuals with that type of technology experience in the United States has access to that, imagine what our adversaries have. All they have to do is go through the web, the internet, and tap into any one of these cameras and hack into it. There's no safety protocols. There's no security involved in this. There are access points that these people, and they're warning people about it. And I talked to a county commissioner today and sent him this video. They were discussing whether or not to buy into the flock system in central Oklahoma. And I said, listen, the liability is huge here. We heard what Mrs. Burgess said. One of these days, somebody's going to be able to tap into these cameras, and then they're going to be able to do something bad to somebody. These cameras are going to be liable. The people, the towns, cities and towns that install these cameras are going to be liable. And now that this information is out and they know about it, it's a slam dunk for any type of attorney in order to get a case using this. So we've got a real issue in America. This is not only in Claremore, not only in Inola and Pryor, it's everywhere. And we have to stand up against this because it's only going to get worse. And the cameras have been updated to the pan, tilt, and zoom, and they're able to read your cell phone while you. This is also on the video. A man's rollerblading, and he stops to watch his little video he made while he was rollerblading, and the camera zooms right in on it. And it also takes the most disturbing was the playground at the park, where the camera just photographed kids playing, and also had their face, and of course he's blurred it all out. He's been very responsible in the way he's presented that. So hopefully we'll be able to disseminate that video to him. And
just go ahead and finish up. I wanted to say something about it. I'd like for this. Is there a techie person here tonight that knows how to work a video on from a computer onto television?
Well, let me see. Let me work with it a little bit.
I think we have to ask a question if somebody here is below the age of 17.
Let me see.
There is a way to mirror this.
She does it at home. I do it at home.
Well, come up here and help him.
I don't know if I can. You could try.
A few weeks ago, using a commercial search engine,
You may have to get out of the and get your mouse to go across the TV and across your laptop to be on the TV. I've done this before.
Okay, here we go. I can do it now. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just have to walk up there and something just, here comes Pam.
Now, let me say something real quick. Folks, you want to watch this. This sums up everything that he's been saying. It sums it up real quick, and you see it rather than just hearing about it, and it will enrage you. Now, I will say this: when he finishes, we're going to have a Q&A time. We're going to have a microphone. It's a microphone over here. You got to come and stand in line and ask questions, and he'll answer your questions for you. But get ready to watch this, if you would.
A few weeks ago, using a commercial search engine, I very easily found the administration interfaces for dozens of flock safety cameras. I shared this information with 404 Media, and with John Gann's help, that number quickly grew to nearly 70. None of the data or video footage was encrypted. There was no username or password required. These were all completely public-facing for the world to see, and some of them still are. You don't have to be an expert to find and gain access to this. You don't even have to type anything in to see every single person, vehicle, and activity that took place in these locations in the last 31 days. Whether you wanted to watch this footage live in real time or look at footage from a month ago, you could just point and click your way to it like you were watching Netflix. You could even open up the live streams in VLC or cast it to a television. Making any modification to the cameras is illegal, so I didn't do this, but I had the ability to delete any of the video footage or evidence by simply pressing a button. I could see the paths where all of the evidence files were located on the file system, and I could see their hashes and signatures. Some of the devices we saw were the familiar-looking Falcon cameras that you see all over the country, but the majority of these were Flock's new Condor cameras, which are designed to detect and track people. They're PTZ cameras, meaning pan, tilt, zoom, and they quite literally use AI to zoom in and follow you around whether you're a person of interest or not. In just the time that it took to count and verify these vulnerabilities, I saw a family in North Carolina load their infant and a bunch of merchandise in a Lowe's parking lot. And I suppose one could cross-reference their license plate with the Park Mobile data breach and find out exactly where the garage is that will store these new fancy tools. I watched a man leave his house in the morning in New York. I watched a woman jogging alone on a forest trail in Georgia. This trail had multiple cameras, and I could watch a man rollerblade and then take a break to watch rollerblading videos on his phone. How? Because the camera's AI automatically zoomed in on it. Just like it zoomed in on a couple arguing at a street market in Atlanta. So what? They're still anonymous, right? No, they're not. Within 2 minutes of open source intelligence using a commercial facial recognition engine, I found out that one of them just finished medical school and the other is dealing with chronic irritable bowel syndrome. The couple also just had a baby last year and they have a pretty concerning debt-to-income ratio. I also know that they drove over 45 minutes from their address in the suburbs to attend church in Atlanta that morning, and then they checked out this market and bought a sweater. I watched a law enforcement officer and ambulance escort a man having a mental health crisis in Iowa. I know this because the Cedar Rapids Police Department maintains a public database of every single emergency call in the city, as well as daily arrest reports with individuals' names, addresses, ages, and genders. Listen, I know that I'm being creepy right now. Just saying these words out loud nauseates me. But I'm trying to show you just a fraction of the information that anyone in the world with access to a commercial search engine has had regarding anyone who attended this market or walked on this trail in the last 31 days. And it gets worse. Here's an exposed flock safety camera permanently pointed at a playground near the Bay Area in California, openly and publicly broadcasting both live and archived video footage of young children playing unattended. Again, just saying this stuff out loud feels so incredibly wrong. But for me personally, the most impactful moment while validating these vulnerabilities was this. This resonated with me so much that I actually had tears welling up in my eyes. I've done this exact same thing so many times. I've seen a swing set in an empty park, looked around to make sure nobody was watching, and then just enjoyed the mindless motion that connected me to a simpler time. But this isn't something that most grown men want to be seen doing. The experience requires one to have a moment that is devoid of judgment. It's healthy escapism at its finest. And I realized that it's likely that this man didn't know that he was being recorded, and he probably wouldn't have done this if he had. This is a classic example of the Hawthorne effect, which is a change in an individual's behavior or choices when they know that they're being observed. Surveillance manufacturers love to talk about this effect when it deters crime. After all, someone isn't as likely to break into a car that's parked near a camera. But what they don't talk about is how it deters escapism. people are less likely to sing or dance or practice an accent or a cartwheel when they know that they're being watched. But escapism is often required for a lot of things. For example, when you learn an instrument or practice a skill for the first time, or even practicing line delivery for a YouTube video. The footage of the man swinging was powerful to me because it made me realize exactly why I have such a visceral objection to mass surveillance. It imposes on our right to find our own identities without judgment. And as someone whose identity and success is owed to ample amounts of escapism, this is a hill that I am willing to die on. I don't have the luxury to dedicate even more months to yet another flock safety vulnerability, but as you can see, this one is urgent. And frankly, I'm worried that it's already being exploited at the cost of the individuals who are unaware that there are even cameras in these locations. So I got in touch with 404 Media, who has been paramount in this same field of journalism, and whose reporting has tremendously helped my research and content.
Together with YouTuber Ben Jordan, we found about 60 flock condor cameras that appear to be streaming directly to the internet without any sort of password, no protection whatsoever. These appear to be condor cameras, and they're designed to track people as they sort of go about their business. And of course, people don't have any idea that this is happening.
If you're coming into this cold, here's some context. A little over a month ago, I released a video detailing a long list of security vulnerabilities with hardware and services in the flock safety ecosystem. There are over 60 published vulnerabilities, so if that concerns you, check that video out. During and after the process of conducting that research and making that video, I was visited by the police and had what I believed to be private investigators outside my home photographing me and my property and bothering my neighbors. John Gann, or Gannsec, the brains behind most of this research, lost employment within 48 hours of the video being released. And the sad reality is that I don't view these things as consequences or punishment for researching security vulnerabilities. I view these as consequences and punishment for doing it ethically and transparently. I've been contacted by people on or communicating with civic councils who found my videos concerning, and they shared Flock Safety's response with me. The company claimed that the devices in my video did not reflect the security standards of the ones being publicly deployed. The CEO even posted on LinkedIn and boasted about Flock Safety's security policies. So I formally and publicly offered to personally fund security research into Flock Safety's deployed ecosystem. But the law prevents me from touching their live devices, so all I needed was their permission so I wouldn't get arrested, and I was even willing to let them supervise this research. I got no response. But now, since the general public has access to live video feeds from search engines, let's just save the back and forth, and I'll literally read you Flock Safety's response to IPVM about their security from a brand new Flock Safety camera that's publicly deployed. Might as well, it's my tax dollars that paid for it. Flock is committed to continuously improving security. The devices in this YouTube video were not connected to the cloud, and to the best of our knowledge, not customer installed, so the security is akin to factory setting. It's like looking at an iPhone stolen off a truck before it was ever connected to the cloud. If a person were able to gain physical access to the device leased to the city, which is illegal, they still would not be able to gain access to the footage, as the data is only stored for a very limited time duration on the device following its transmission to the cloud. None of these vulnerabilities affect our cloud platform, where the vast majority of all evidence and metadata is stored.
I found another one at Young Street and Harris Road, also in Bakersfield, which is about 15 minutes from the other spot. So I'm going to go walk up to that now. You can actually see it.
So there, if your city or county or place of business or whatever feels satisfied by the company's reassurances, show them that. Many of the feeds that you've seen in this video were relatively easy to find and completely accessible at the time Flock Safety was telling cities that the devices are secure after they're deployed. And if you are in touch with your county or city council, keep a record of your correspondence with them. Let them know and fully realize that if someone gets stalked, robbed, harassed, or abducted as a result of a reported security vulnerability by a third-party surveillance vendor, they'll be on record for having known about it and approving it anyway. and they can explain that to their voters and constituents. I've said this before, and I'm sure I'll say it again. The underlying problem is not flock safety. The problem is cities wanting a cloud-connected, AI-enhanced mass surveillance system, but are too lazy to conduct their own security audit or research the efficacy versus risk. And it very much is an industry-wide problem. For example, other vendors in this industry have used my last video to shame flock safety on social media, being completely unaware that I had broken their own AI model before ever even having access to a flock device. And I need to make it very clear that I am not the first and only person to find out about all of these enormous vulnerabilities. I'm just apparently the first person stupid enough to walk the expensive legal tightrope of making them public on a large platform. But I also have tremendously cool and impactful projects lined up for this channel that have taken a backseat due to the urgency of this. I want to go back to storing data in birds and inventing microphones to record volcanoes, but I'm happy to contribute to and stay active in the growing community of people standing up to this. If you don't subscribe to 404 Media's content and journalism, I highly recommend doing so. And if you're not already familiar with Louis Rossmann, then go check out his channel and work relating to this, because it's hugely impactful and something that you can get involved in. Having seen and heard these Condor cameras in person, I can tell you that they are so much more dystopian and problematic than license plate cameras. And I wish that I had some sort of advice for people other than stay out of public. But some of them are literally pointed at people's private property. But in the meantime, I just ask that you don't lay down and accept the infiltration of your expectations of privacy. You need privacy to build your identity and refine the things that make you authentic. Thanks for watching. Keep creating. Happy holidays. Bye.
Any questions? Y'all have any questions?
Let me say a couple things, and we're going to start the Q&A.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to urge you to think about your answer. I'm going to ask you a question, and then I want you to give me an answer. Are you seriously thinking about watching all of this and then saying to yourself or to the other people around, I don't want to get involved in anything. I just want to live my life? You're losing your life now. We have to stand up to this. And I'm willing to help lead the effort to do that. I'm not getting paid anything. I'm putting a target on my back. But I want to have the America come back that I grew up with, and just have some of that for my grandkids. How many of you believe that and feel that way? Yeah, some of you are probably afraid. I don't want anyone to see me, or I don't want to say anything because I want to get out of here, and I don't want to be recognized by a camera anywhere. I've invited people to come here, and they're afraid that they're going to have some kind of a contraption in the air to follow them out here and find out where they're going. And I said, you're already being watched. I think we need to stand together, folks. I'm asking you to help us. You don't have to get up and make speeches. You just have to help us when we do petitions, when we do things for voting purposes. We want you to help us to gather information. We want you to help just to be present sometimes at meetings where some of us speak. We need to have people behind us. I've learned through experience that politicians, when they have a crowd in front of them that's kind of upset with what they're doing, suddenly they can count and they see voters that are opposed to them. And we need to get involved starting now. How many of you believe that? Okay, so I'm going to say that you just I had a flock camera watching you, and we're going to come get you if you don't hold up your word. No, I'm kidding. This is 1984. If you ever read the book or saw the movie, coming late, 42 years later, but it's here, and we're going to have to stand up together if you want to have freedom. America, the world is changing so rapidly. What used to take 25 to 50 years for things to change now happens in a week or overnight even. Have you watched that? And so it's time to quit saying, I just don't want to get involved. I just want to live my life. We have to stand together. We need to get a group of people that will stand together and fight this. And I'm all for that. I just believe in freedom and liberty. And like this film says, I'm willing to die on this hill. I'm willing to die on this hill. I think it's time for us to do that. Now we're going to have a Q&A time that you're not going to ask me questions, you're going to ask Tom questions. But we want you, if you will, come over to the microphone. This is being recorded tonight. And we want you to ask questions publicly, and he's going to answer you publicly if you have anything. So who wants to do the first question?
I'll do one.
All right, stand right up to the microphone, sir.
I am curious, who is funding this flock, or who's paying for the cameras? And number two, who determines where they put the cameras?
The funding comes from several different sources. There's federal dollars, federal grant dollars for this program. The tribal entities provide some of the funding for flock cameras, and then of course cities through tax dollars they pay for the system.
So this company or these people can access these dollars.
Yes.
And purchase the equipment, and
yes.
then they can go into any community.
Well, this is coming in. Yes, this is coming in through your city council or your county commissioner, local governments. At the state level, we already have the prohibition. You can't use the data. Okay, but then they go to the lower forms of government, county and state, or county and city. And then how they're deployed or where they're deployed, I'm not sure what the process is for that. But you can go to a website, deflock.me, and you can see the ones that have been publicly reported by individuals. And you can drill down and you can see there's 4 at this corner, and so you can use that to also identify and to report where a flock camera is if it's not on the map. So that's something that you can see exactly where they are. But it's through your cities and local governments that this is being deployed.
So the bottom line is, our commissioners are the ones that are being contacted for the permission to put them where?
Yes, this was in Cleveland County. I talked to a commissioner today who had this issue came up before the county commissioners, brought in by the sheriff, and they put it off for another month. And he called me, he had some questions about it, wanted to know what I thought because he had heard about my interim study. And then city councils, the city councils have to vote this in, and oftentimes it's through the chief of police, and so this is how they're brought in. This is where they're sold. Flock will come and give their presentation, and then how they deployed or where they're deployed, I think is up to the local sheriff or the local police entity. Now I know in prior they had cameras that were placed on the right of way on state poles for turn signals and things, signal poles. And they were asked to remove them. The Department of Transportation came and said these are not authorized to be on state right-of-way or state property, and they were forced to move them off of that. And kind of the irony of it all, though, these new cameras that they have the zoom, so they can be set back off the state right-of-way now and have the same effect as they would if they were right on the highway. So that's what level you see them coming in, is the state and county level.
Would it be the city the city police and the sheriff that would have an interest to reach out to the flock, or is the flock coming to them?
Well, I think there's a lot of peer pressure amongst law enforcement agencies. Hey, you need to get this system because they tell about all the godlike status you can have by seeing everybody's movement and tracking everybody and knowing you can even put an alert and find out if you got a bad guy coming to your community. I mean, the draw is there for that, and that's how it's
How they sell it?
Yeah, how they sell it. Plus, being on that network, you saw where, he tapped into one, was able to see New York, Georgia, all over the nation. And so you have that access when you have different entities that share their data amongst other agencies, that you can see even the ATF, the FBI has access to this data. And so that was in my first presentation. That was in my first interim study. Even the post office, the inspection, the law enforcement side of the U.S. postal system has access. And so this is you want to be plugged in. You want to be in the group that has all the data.
Thank you.
You bet. Now,
Someone else have a question?
any other questions? Yes.
Well, how long has this been in effect? I'm sorry, you probably said, but I know the bill passed in 2016.
Yes.
Was that when they started installing these cameras?
And I'm not sure where. I'm not sure at the time that the ALPR for compulsory insurance was passed and it became law. It took a couple of years for them to go through the RFP process and get that vendor that they awarded the contract to do the license plate readers for the compulsory insurance law. Then I think we've seen Flock come. Would have to probably go back and look at when Flock came on the scene, and then as they doled this out. Yes, typically this is what tech companies do. They kind of go out as fast as they can and get it, because they know there's going to be a backlash. He knows there's going to be a backlash to this, so he's trying to sell as many as he can when he can. So, but when that date was, I don't know exactly when it was.
How many counties do you think have this? I mean, do you have any idea?
Well, the documentation I have currently, over 4,000 cities and towns have it.
4,000?
Yes.
Are we talking about Oklahoma? Are you talking about 4,000?
4,000 nationwide. Yeah. And now in that,
4,000.
at that website, deflock.me, you can go and see you can see cameras all over the nation.
Just the letter D?
Yeah, DEFLOCK.me. And that's a website
Can
that.
y'all use the mic because this isn't being recorded?
It's not being recorded. If people could use the microphone over here. To
Everything
ask
that was said here.
That was not even on. It's not on anyway.
It's not on.
No.
Ooh, that's not good. Can you hear me, Brian? Okay, Brian's is on. I can restate the question if I have to. Yes.
You've been very, whoa.
Back up, Ron.
Yeah, you've been very informative, along with this gentleman's questions, about how we got here. How do we get out of here?
Well, that's one reason I'm here showing you this video. It's going to come down to dollars. All right, the exposure, the liability exposure with these systems, and your Fourth Amendment violations. It's like Sheena Burgess, the attorney from Tulsa. She said the lawsuits are coming. You are breaking the law. You have no warrant, and you're using data that is not lawful to use. And law enforcement hasn't gotten that yet. And I think it's going to probably break at some point in time. There's got to be a case that may be the one in Virginia and maybe the one that she's working on. I don't know. But at the end of the day, the people in Aurora, Colorado got it because they got dinged for a $1.9 million lawsuit for their mistake on ALPRs.
And what did that result in?
What did it result in?
Yeah.
The lawsuit?
Yeah,
Well,
but
they pay.
they had to pay out 1.9
Yes.
million.
Yes.
So what happened after that?
I'm not sure, but I can tell you that that other communities are seeing the problem with this, and they're dropping out. You got them in Arizona, you have them in Massachusetts, and you had Guthrie. It was one of the first cities and towns in Oklahoma that deployed these cameras, and they got rid of theirs. And then I think Bartlesville had too many cameras. Some of them were in the right of ways of the state of Oklahoma. They were forced to remove the cameras that were in the right of way. They left a couple, I think, that were on city right of way. But there's a big push now due to the information that's coming out, like the video that I showed, of trying to get rid of theirs and just do away with them.
So right now, it's just through the legal system.
Well, right now, no, with that, and also because people are becoming aware, and then they're going to hold their local officials accountable, and your cities and towns are going to be on the hook if we have another situation like Aurora, Colorado happened in Oklahoma, which we apparently were really close because of the man that contacted me about his experience. So I think it's just a matter of time before we have that happen, but because the exposure is huge.
Right.
And this is something that you don't want to be having your property assessed because somebody made a digit error on a tag and hurt somebody, mistakenly thinking that they were bad guys.
Thank you.
Yes.
If you have a question, please come over to the microphone. People are afraid there's a flock camera in here.
Yes. Yes.
I have a question, and it's probably off from what this is. But on Highway 20 on the way to Pryor, right before you get there, you turn right, and there's acres and acres of solar panels on sticks. What is that? On poles.
That's what you call a solar farm. Yes.
And what are they doing with it?
Some property owner was guaranteed a certain amount of money for the use of his property, and he leased his property to this solar panel company, and he's allowed then to take his land and convert it for solar panel use instead of agricultural use. So that is a decision made by an individual landowner, and to be able to go out and do with his land as he pleases.
The question is, what are they doing with the solar?
Yeah.
Well, they're putting that into the grid. The amount of energy and electricity generated by those solar panel projects all over the state are all fed into the grid to help offset the usage of electricity.
He sells it back to the grid, and they pay him dollars.
Yes, they pay him dollars. Yeah.
And how that works?
Yes.
Okay, that sounds good. I didn't know if it was something bad.
Well, it all depends on if you're the landowner or not. I think to the landowner who feels like he should be able to use his land for that purpose, that's and there's no law that prevents him from doing it. It's a free country, and so this is where you are. So he clearly believes he can convert his land to the use, and the other neighbors surrounding him have to deal with that. Yes.
I have a question, and I want to make a statement first. This seems to be very similar to 30 years ago what we faced in Overland Park, Kansas, in some very rich suburban areas where companies would come in or an individual would come in and put in what they call the juice bar. A juice bar was nothing different than a strip club that would be serve drinks. They would not serve alcohol, but they would serve grape juice and things like that, cola drinks. But they had striptease acts and all that in really nice rich suburban areas. And people became so upset about this that they united together. It took them a while because people didn't want to get involved until a juice bar wound up next door. And it just ruined family life for them. And so they started getting uniting together to fight this off, and then the juice bars finally disappeared because the people put so much pressure on them. We together collectively have a lot of strength and power if we stand up together. If we don't, if we refuse to do that and say, I wish somebody would do something about this, we are the somebody. And we cannot sit by and expect somebody else to carry our water for us because we don't want to get involved. If we sit by and don't do something, the ultimate disaster of this is you will lose all of your liberty. You will lose the property that you live on. It won't be yours anymore. It will belong to the government or the state, because that's the ultimate goal of collectivism, is that there's high taxes of 80-some%, plus you have to rent everything from the government and they own the house that you live in. It's almost that way now, even though your mortgage is totally paid. Guess what happens to you if you don't pay your real estate taxes? Anyone have a guess? They take it away from you because they ultimately own it. That's how far down the road the tracks we've gotten with everything. So my question is, what's it going to take, Tom, to wake some people up?
I'm glad you brought up property taxes. If you allow me to make a shameless plug for one of my bills that I passed, that in the event that state question, it's 842 now, that will deal with property taxes in the state of Oklahoma. I have a bill that called the Homestead Ownership Protection Act. It's House Bill 3839. It restores unconditional ownership of residential property following the elimination of property tax liens if that state question passes, and shifts the burden of proof to the state, guarantees innocent owner protections, and creates penalties for abuse, and establishes a public seizure dashboard so that you can keep track of it. But we've got to have laws that protect you. This is a trigger bill in the event that passes, so that they can't come up and decide, well, property taxes aren't there, but we're going to come up with some other euphemistic type tax and tax you on it. So this would guarantee a freeholder state. And this is important that we have laws that protect us so that it'll never happen again. And so that's in answer to your question.
But one of the important things that has to happen is that bill has to get past McCall to be heard.
It's Hilbert. Yeah, it's Speaker Hilbert. McCall is the priority.
It has to get passed.
Yes, it has
to get on the floor to be heard.
It has to get heard. That's right. Right.
And if it doesn't get heard, then it doesn't go anywhere.
No. So really, I guess in regards to your statement, this is a local issue. These are local issues because the local police departments, the local county sheriffs are encouraged to implement this system. And I think it's important that you reach out to your local representative, whether it be your county commissioner or if you live in the cities and towns that you come from. Make sure that they understand the exposure that they're putting themselves to with this type of system. And make sure that they understand that Oklahoma has a law that prevents the use of the data. So why would you collect it if they cannot use it to prosecute somebody with it? Doesn't make sense, folks. So it's a local. Here at the state level, we were fortunate to have some foresight on this committee that we heard, where they said that it can only be used for the compulsory insurance law, and shall not is the strongest language that they could put in there. And so we have that prohibition, and we're watching any type of legislation that may weaken that, or any type of authorization that may expand upon that. And so right now is where the rubber meets the road, is locally. at your counties and your cities.
Well, here and one thing I'd like to say. Can you hear me back there on the? Okay. One thing I'd like to say. The reason I asked this question is I went to my commissioner via email and requested an audience with him for 15 minutes to ask these questions. I've never received a response that said yes. We have to go back and put pressure on these people with numbers. That's what we had to do 3 years ago when they were getting ready to pass the America the Beautiful Act, which was nothing more than a land grab by the government. And they hadn't even read the bill. They didn't know what was in it. And we got asked to come back and show them in black and white what the bill was all about, and they did, and they were embarrassed that they didn't know. So again, we've reverted back that they're not listening to us. I don't think, that's my opinion, because I've requested, 3 weeks ago, I requested in an email to have an audience to ask 15 minutes worth of questions and get an explanation, and they don't respond. So I think we have to do things together.
Yes.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know if it's a question or a statement or a little of both, but you educated us tonight, and obviously there's things we found out that we didn't know before we came here. And obviously the answer is that people need to know the pros and the cons.
Yes.
And you can't, this group of people, yeah, we can tell somebody, but that's just, one-on-one. There needs to be a broader spectrum, a broader audience that we can reach either through radio or television, because people are ignorant of this. They have no idea. They're hearing what the sheriffs are saying. We can handle more crime. We can find out things. We can watch predators on a school ground. I'm sure there's little buzzword things that they say that everybody goes, oh, wow, that sounds great. But on the other hand, they don't know the liability, how intrusive this is into our lives. How can we educate people to what's going on? Right under our nose. They do these things right under our nose. And we don't have a clue that it's even happening. Not really. It's done, it's like the data centers. They're buying the land and they're putting them in, and you go down there and find it, and it's already a done deal. I mean, Kuwaita, thank God, they weren't able to pass that in Kuwaita, but that's another whole different issue. So
Yeah.
My question is, I know you're working hard, you're here talking to us tonight, but you're one person.
Well, and it just, it takes people one-on-one saying, hey, did you see that ALPR study down at the state capitol? It's all linked here. You have to be familiar with how to get on and navigate the House site to share it with people. I have a Facebook page, and you're welcome to go out there and look. I try to keep people abreast as to what is the latest news on the ALPRs, but it takes people willing to go to their city councilors who are making these decisions and say, hey, would you rethink this for a minute? Or can I have the data? If this is public, can I have, through the Freedom of Information Act, can I request the data on my tag and to see just how extensive this is? I mean, there's questions you can ask them that they're responsible for because they're elected officials and they made these decisions with your tax dollars. So you just have to network with, the 2 or 3 people that's concerned about this, and then they'll network with 2 or 3 people, and this is how you have to be aware, or how you can help be aware of what's going on. I think that's
the law on our side.
The law's on our side. Okay. It is, and
they're breaking the law.
They are.
They are breaking the law.
Yes,
the law's on our side, but yet we can't enforce the law because the law is behind the whole thing. They want it.
It's so ironic. It was so nice to see. She's a small thing, but she just leaned forward in her chair and said, "You're breaking the law." I mean, that's just what she said. And
common in our nation, they don't. Yeah. No one has any respect or honor for the law.
Well, and not only that is nobody wants you to show up at a council meeting. Nobody wants you to show up at a county commissioner meeting, and we have a problem in the state of really going. Everybody wants secret government, and we can't have that. And transparency and sunlight awareness is key in a representative form of government, and you have to have people who will be willing to tell you what they're doing, because at the end of the day, you elected them. They took something sacred from you, which is your vote, and then they go and plot against you. I think it's immoral. I think it's wrong that way. So we have a problem with secret government here in the state of Oklahoma, and it's all up and down the hierarchy, from the governor all the way down.
It's almost overwhelming.
It is.
It's just so big.
Yes.
It's just so entrenched.
Yes.
So entrenched.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for that question.
Okay, my question is flock. What does that? How did they come up with that name?
You know, that's they used an analogy of join the flock, be a sheep. They want you to be a sheep, and we'll be the shepherd. I think that's the image that they tried to project, because there used to be a billboard put up by Flock on the bypass that goes around Jinx and hits into 44 going to Oklahoma City. And the reason I know it was there because we traveled and passed it by, but it says join the flock, you know, become a sheep.
Okay, a lot of times, the letters stand for different things, but...
No, it's the concept.
The concept, okay. And who's the man that started it or is behind it?
The man's name is Garrett Langley.
Okay, that's Garrett Langley. Okay.
Yes, that young...
And where is he out of?
Georgia, I believe.
Okay. Okay, so, and the whole thing started with insurance companies.
Well, the whole thing started by this man who thought that he could solve crime or prevent crime by putting a camera on everybody. And what he I guess he failed to read or didn't have. He's probably spent too much time in front of a computer, maybe, and didn't read the Constitution, because your Fourth Amendment rights don't go away because you have a technology like this. And your automobile. The contents, the things inside your automobile are your person and your effects. And we live in a society where it's required that you have to drive somewhere to work, to get groceries, to do all types of things. So not driving is not an option. Yeah. And so you by just by the way we live today is we got a technician here.
Well, I was just thinking about, I remember when we didn't have to pay insurance for our vehicles.
Well, you've opened up a whole nother can of worms.
That's what I mean.
Like being compelled to have liability insurance. Yes, I mean that's a whole nother issue there, and that was just one step to the next step. Was okay, we've got this. Now we have to enforce it. So yeah, you're absolutely right. You're on to the fact that why does the government compel you to have insurance? Yeah.
Do you have a question?
I have a statement.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We're looking at this, and of course we know this young man. I don't believe he did this by himself. I think he's got the powers that be against us behind him, okay? But anyway, not only look at that, but even when you fly now, guess what they want? They want a picture of your face. Our cell phones, they want your finger, they want your face. Facebook, they got your face. So it's really everything. We're fighting everything. But this is one thing that we can come against together. And the big thing is sharing. Everyone that came here tonight, you got it. Share it out, but don't share it and then do another text with it. You've got to check on this, and let's share this out. We've got to do something about this. Everybody that's not here tonight, hundreds of people, some come on, whatever. I'm going to send that out to them because we've got to get the word out. But I'm just saying, you're smart. Everything in your home that's a smart, your Alexa, they're watching every single thing. Should we go about the TV that they can see you? I mean, you just go on and on. But
the difference there is only the government can come in and arrest you. And they need a warrant, they need a court order or subpoena in order to do that. And right now, they don't have that. They can gather this information and come and get you based upon that information without a warrant.
Yeah, I just brought all that other stuff up just because that's where my mind was going. But this is something that we can get together to stop that with your help. But it's going to take the people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to let us know when the bills are there so we can call what we learned tonight
right.
to get these bills heard.
Yeah, we've had about 2,000 bills filed in the filing season. Filing season was over on January 15th. There were about 1,500 in the Senate, I think, and then there's about 1,400, I think, in the House. Don't hold me to those numbers, but that I don't know if that includes HJRs, House Joint Resolutions, or resolutions. I don't know if it involves that, but that's kind of the volume that we're looking at. That'll go through the filtering process that we saw the other day, but we watch it. We're watching them for any expansion on this that would give them just a blank check to go ahead and continue on. So
I would encourage everybody to get on his newsletter so we can stay abreast of all this.
Yeah. The sign-up sheets are back there. By the way, there's a couple of sign-up sheets. Please do that. Okay.
I have one other thing. Anyone else have a question or you want to ask? Well, you've said that we're protected by the Constitution, right?
The Constitution is there to protect your freedom and restrain government.
And I would almost argue that the Constitution is not there many times because it's not recognized in what's commonly called the court of law in America. They don't want to hear about the Constitution. They want to hear about the Bar Association rules. And we have to reestablish that as we the people. Are you hearing me? We have to reestablish it as we the people, that the Constitution is going to be back in force, and we have to stand together. Now, somebody might say that's mob rule, but our framers started out in 1775 in what was called the First Continental Congress, and it was a frightening time. They met all summer long. And the only thing that they didn't even get it settled, but they kept asking the same question, can we really do this? Because they were getting ready to overthrow their own government. It wasn't a foreign government, it was their government. And they kept asking the question, do we really have the power? Can we really do this? And they didn't know. And they finally figured it out during the Second Continental Congress, which started after the war started. Because they were forced, they were going to have to figure it out. My statement is we are in a war. You may not want to hear that. You may not like that. I don't like it. But we are in a war. It's not the 1950s anymore. It's not Leave It to Beaver time anymore. I hear people all the time saying, this is America. Nothing like that's ever going to happen here. It's happening. I'm calling on you to stand with us. We're going to work tomorrow. We've already gone to work, but we're going to meet tomorrow in a session to try to lay out some ground language that we can use to help stop some of this. And we're going to need your help to stand behind us. And we need you coming back to the barn when we have meetings and talk about it. Because we got to work together. Chris and I want you to pray for us. Chris and I are going tomorrow as your leaders to go meet and try to hammer out language that can be used to help stop some of this garbage that's happening in Rogers County. So I want you to be aware of that. We want to do this. This is These are Christian people here getting together and saying, hey, we want to do the right thing. Now, I've heard pastors talking about, well, wait a minute. Now, Romans 13 says you have to obey the government in all cases. If that was the case, why didn't you obey the abortion laws when they were put in place? Because you knew it was wrong, that's why. And Romans 13 is read in the wrong context there because God wants us to honor a godly government, but not an evil one. And so we've got to stand together, folks. I hope you're hearing all this tonight. Yes?
I don't think you need to convince us to be a part of it. We just need to know where you're going to be a part of it.
We will start telling you and lay out the steps here pretty soon. We want to get all of them lined out, and we want you staying with us as a group and have the group grow in numbers. And I know how easy it is. You know, sometimes I want to call in and say, I can't go to the meeting tonight because I got to clean out my sock drawer. It'd come up with anything. But we're going to do this. Yes?
If we know Lowe's have one of these cameras, what do you personally do about that?
Ask him.
Lowe's, that's a private business, okay? It's owned by stockholders, and if they want security cameras in their business, they can have them. The problem becomes when law enforcement has access to that information, and so that relationship has got to be worked out somehow. And I don't know what the answer to that is, but I do know, too, that the flock cameras that are positioned on poles, I don't know if they're owned by the city of Claremore or if they're owned by Flock. But if you see a stationary device that's in the parking lot and it has a little blue light on it and it spins and it looks like a trailer, that's typically owned by the company. And so whenever I had a business, I had closed circuit TV cameras in my business, and so that's fine, for them to police their own business. So you have to make that distinction. Should government be able to track you everywhere you go? Should they be able to call up that information and build a pattern and a footprint and just a history of where you've been and who you've associated with?
The answer to that's no.
Answer to that should be no. So that's the difference. Okay. Thank you, folks. Thank you all for your time this evening, and thank you for having me tonight.
Yeah. Give him a hand. That was great.